From the ashes of war to the bright lights of the UFC, the Topuria brothers' journey is nothing short of legendary. Witness the untold story of resilience, family, and the relentless pursuit of greatness. This is more than just a fight. This is a legacy in the making. Don't miss out on the incredible journey of Ilia Topuria and his rise to UFC stardom. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated with the latest in the world of MMA. Drop a comment below. Who do you want to see Ilia fight next? Let us know. Childhood in a war-torn country. Ilia Topuria was born in Georgia, a country that has long experienced political turmoil and conflict. His early childhood was marked by instability, economic struggles, and the lingering effects of war. Georgia had suffered through the aftermath of the Soviet Union's collapse, and by the early 2000s, it was still recovering from conflicts that had left the country in a fragile state. Ilia was just 9 years old when his parents made the heartbreaking decision to leave for Spain in search of better economic opportunities. It was not an easy choice, but they saw no future for their children in a country plagued by uncertainty and hardship. However, due to financial constraints and immigration challenges, Ilia and his siblings could not travel with them. Instead, they were left in the care of their older sisters, who were still teenagers themselves. For a child, being separated from parents at such a young age was devastating. Ilia and his siblings had to grow up fast, learning to take care of themselves while navigating the harsh realities of their environment. Their sisters, despite being just children themselves, took on the roles of guardians, waking them up, preparing meals, and making sure they stayed safe. Life in Georgia was not easy. Resources were limited, and with war always looming in the background, fear and uncertainty became a part of daily life. The lack of stable electricity, food shortages, and the ever-present threat of violence made survival a constant struggle. Despite the hardships, Ilia's childhood in Georgia shaped him into the fighter he would later become. He learned resilience, discipline, and the importance of family. The challenges he faced at such a young age instilled in him a deep hunger for success, driving him to push beyond his limits when he eventually found his path in mixed martial arts. Fighter's mentality from a young age. Even as a child, Ilia Topuria had a warrior's mindset. Growing up in Georgia, where life was tough and resources were scarce, he and his brother Alex found strength in physical competition. They were drawn to combat sports, particularly Greco-Roman wrestling, a discipline deeply rooted in their culture. From an early age, they trained relentlessly, dreaming of one day becoming Olympians. Wrestling was more than just a sport for them. It was a way to build character, toughness, and a sense of purpose. The training was grueling, demanding hours of practice, intense drills, and constant competition. But for Ilia, it was a way to channel his energy and prove his strength. Beyond formal training, Ilia and his brother had a natural fighting spirit that extended into their everyday lives. In school, they never backed down from a challenge. If they saw a weaker classmate being bullied, they would step in, not just to defend the victim but to send a message that they were not to be messed with. Fighting was a way of life, a necessity in a tough environment where respect had to be earned. This aggressive, no-nonsense mentality would later translate into his MMA career. The lessons he learned on the mats and in the streets of Georgia shaped his approach to combat sports. Relentless, fearless, and always ready for battle. Even as a young boy, Ilia carried himself like a fighter, laying the foundation for the champion he would one day become. Surviving the Russia-Georgia War. In 2008, when Ilia Topuria was just 11 years old, his world was turned upside down by war. Russia invaded Georgia in a brutal conflict that lasted just 5 days but left a lasting impact on the country and its people. Ilia and his family lived only 14 kilometers from the capital, Tbilisi, and suddenly, their everyday struggles were overshadowed by the terrifying reality of war. The invasion brought chaos and destruction. Airstrikes, bombings, and the constant sound of gunfire became part of daily life. With roads destroyed and cities under attack, families like Ilia's were trapped, struggling to survive. Electricity was cut off, food became scarce, and clean water was almost impossible to find. The streets, once filled with children playing, turned into battlegrounds. Ilia had to grow up quickly. Survival was no longer just about fighting bullies or proving himself on the wrestling mat. It was about making it through each day. He and his siblings relied on each other as they navigated the war's dangers, learning to endure hunger, fear, and uncertainty. Their mother and father were already in Spain, trying to build a better future, so the responsibility of protecting the family fell on his older sisters, who were barely teenagers themselves. The experience left a deep mark on Ilia. He witnessed firsthand the fragility of life and the brutality of war. But instead of breaking him, it hardened him. It instilled in him a sense of resilience and a will to fight through any challenge life threw at him. This same mentality would later define his approach to MMA. No matter how tough the opponent or how difficult the situation, quitting was never an option. Personal struggles and family bonds. With their parents working in Spain, Ilia Topuria and his siblings were left to navigate the harsh realities of life in Georgia on their own. His older sisters, barely teenagers themselves, had to take on the role of parents. They woke him up in the mornings, made sure he had food to eat, and kept the household running despite the chaos surrounding them. There were no luxuries, just survival. Some days there was barely enough food, and other times they had to rely on the kindness of neighbors. Ilia learned the value of family in these difficult times. He saw how his sisters sacrificed their own childhoods to take care of him and his brother. Instead of playing or going out with friends, they spent their days cooking, cleaning, and making sure their younger brothers were safe. Despite the hardships, Ilia never lost hope. He found strength in his family's resilience. They kept each other motivated, reminding themselves that one day things would get better. His brother Alex was his closest companion, and the two often leaned on each other for support. They shared the same dream of becoming athletes, and even in the worst moments they pushed each other to keep going. This period of his life taught Ilia valuable lessons that would later shape his mindset as a fighter. He learned discipline, responsibility, and the ability to endure struggles without breaking. The war had already toughened him, but the love and sacrifices of his family gave him a reason to keep fighting, not just for himself but for them. Finally reuniting with his parents. 4 years, Ilia Topuria and his siblings lived apart from their parents, enduring hardships in Georgia while their mother and father struggled to build a better life in Spain. The separation was painful. Ilia longed for his parents' presence, but he also understood their sacrifice. They had left not because they wanted to, but because they had to. During those years, phone calls were their only connection. His parents would ask how he was doing, offer encouragement, and promise that one day they would be together again. But Ilia knew that life in Spain was not easy for them either. His mother and father worked tirelessly, taking on multiple jobs just to save enough money to bring their children to Spain. That long-awaited day finally arrived when Ilia turned 15. His parents had managed to secure the necessary paperwork, and the family was reunited in Alicante, Spain. It was an emotional moment. Years of struggle, sacrifice, and patience had finally paid off. The pain of separation was replaced with joy, and for the first time in years, they were together as a family. Moving to Spain wasn't just about being with his parents, it was a turning point in Ilia's life. He saw it as a new beginning, a chance to build a future that wasn't limited by war and instability. However, it wasn't an easy transition. Ilia and his siblings had to adjust to a new country, a new language, and a completely different way of life. Despite the challenges, Ilia saw opportunity. He and his brother Alex knew that Spain offered them a better shot at pursuing their dream of becoming fighters. Reuniting with their parents gave them a sense of security they hadn't felt in years. Now, with his family by his side, Ilia was ready to chase his destiny. Ilia Topuria's introduction to BJJ. After settling in Spain, Ilia Topuria's life took a pivotal turn when he was introduced to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, BJJ. His mother played an unexpected role in this discovery. One day she noticed a man with distinct cauliflower ears, a common trait among wrestlers and grapplers. Curious, she struck up a conversation and learned about a local gym where young athletes trained in martial arts. Knowing Ilia's love for wrestling, she encouraged him to check it out. Ilia walked into the Clement Club, a small gym that would soon become his second home. Up until that point he had trained in Greco-Roman wrestling, but BJJ was a completely new world. The moment he stepped onto the mats he was hooked. The sport felt like an extension of what he had always loved: physical combat, strategy, and relentless discipline. His first training sessions were humbling. He was a strong wrestler, but BJJ required a different skill set: submissions, positional control, and adaptability. Under the guidance of experienced coaches like Augustine and Jorge, Ilia quickly adapted. His natural aggression, combined with his wrestling background, made him a fast learner. He began competing in local tournaments, proving that he had a knack for the sport. More than just a physical challenge, BJJ became an obsession for Ilia. He trained relentlessly, often staying in the gym long after practice ended. The sport gave him purpose. It was no longer just about fighting, It was about mastering a craft, outthinking opponents, and pushing himself to new limits. This introduction to BJJ marked the true beginning of his MMA journey. It wasn't just about learning a new martial art, it was the first step toward becoming a well-rounded fighter. Ilia had found his passion, and from that moment on, he knew he was destined for something bigger. Rapid progress and UFC opportunity. Ilia's commitment to MMA paid off quickly as he began to make noticeable progress in his training. His dedication to becoming a world-class fighter was evident, as he spent hours at the gym, often training into the late hours of the night. He was relentless, pushing himself to improve in all aspects of mixed martial arts. With each passing day, his skills sharpened, and it became clear to everyone around him that he had the potential to go far. His progress didn't go unnoticed in the MMA world. Ilia soon began competing in various promotions, making a name for himself in organizations like Cage Warriors and Brave. His performances were nothing short of spectacular, with his combination of striking, grappling, and overall fight IQ standing out. His reputation as a fighter who could finish opponents in devastating fashion grew, and it wasn't long before he caught the attention of the UFC. The opportunity to fight in the UFC came unexpectedly. After a strong run in the regional circuits, Ilia received a short-notice call to fight in the UFC, even though he was still recovering from a bout with COVID-19. This was a moment that many fighters dream of, an opportunity to showcase their talents on the biggest stage in the sport. Despite the circumstances, Ilia didn't hesitate. He knew that this was the chance he had been working for, and he was determined to make the most of it. His UFC debut was nothing short of impressive. He showcased his well-rounded skills and relentless fighting style, winning over fans and critics alike. It was clear that he wasn't just another fighter, he was a future star in the making. This debut marked the beginning of what would be an incredible rise for Ilia, as he went on to dominate in the UFC, further cementing his status as one of the most promising fighters in the featherweight division. Ilia's rapid rise through the ranks of MMA was a testament to his work ethic, his passion, and his unyielding drive to succeed. What started as a young boy's dream of becoming an Olympic wrestler had evolved into a full-fledged career in the UFC. This was just the beginning, and Ilia's journey was far from over. With each fight, he grew stronger, more skilled, and more determined to achieve his ultimate goal, becoming a UFC champion. Rivalry with Paddy Pimblett. One of the most heated rivalries in Ilia Topuria's career has been with British fighter Paddy Pimblett. The two athletes clashed both inside and outside the octagon, with their fiery personalities and contrasting fighting styles fueling a rivalry that captivated MMA fans around the world. The tension between Ilia and Paddy began to rise during the build-up to UFC 282. Both fighters, known for their brash and confident personalities, took jabs at each other in the media. The verbal sparring quickly escalated, with Ilia throwing insults at Paddy's fighting abilities, claiming that the Liverpool native was more focused on fame and social media than honing his skills in the gym. Paddy in turn didn't hold back, calling Ilia out for his cocky attitude and questioning his readiness to fight at the highest level. Their animosity reached a boiling point during one of the UFC press conferences, where the exchange between the two became physical. Ilia, in an act of frustration, threw a hand sanitizer bottle at Paddy, intensifying the animosity. The UFC cameras captured the moment, further amplifying the rivalry and turning it into a fan-favorite storyline heading into UFC 282. The bad blood between the two fighters only added to the anticipation surrounding their eventual clash. When the night of the fight arrived, all eyes were on the two of them. Fans were divided. Some supported Ilia's hard-hitting, no-nonsense style, while others rooted for Paddy's charisma and flashy approach. The stakes were high, not just for the fighters but for their respective fan bases as well. In the octagon, Ilia's ruthless approach to fighting was on full display. His striking was sharp, his grappling relentless, and his overall dominance in the fight left no doubt about who was the superior fighter that night. The fight ended with Ilia emerging victorious, proving that his confidence wasn't just talk. He was a force to be reckoned with in the UFC's featherweight division. The rivalry between Ilia and Paddy, while intense, also served as a catalyst for Ilia's rise in the UFC. It brought him into the spotlight, showcasing his fierce determination and unshakable confidence. The two may have been bitter rivals, but the competition between them ultimately elevated both of their careers and captivated MMA fans across the globe. The victory over Paddy Pimblett was just another chapter in Ilia Topuria's journey, but it cemented his reputation as one of the sport's most exciting and dangerous fighters. Personal motivation. For Ilia Topuria, fighting isn't just about achieving personal glory or becoming a champion. His deep-rooted motivation stems from a powerful drive to provide a better life for his family, particularly for his son Ilia Topuria. Ilia's journey from growing up in a war-torn country to becoming a rising UFC star is a testament to his unyielding determination to change his life and the lives of those closest to him. Ilia's childhood in Georgia was marked by instability and hardship, with his parents leaving for Spain when he was just 9 years old to seek better economic opportunities. During those years, Ilia and his siblings were raised by their older sisters and life was tough. However, despite the challenges, Ilia maintained a strong resolve. The hardships he faced during those early years fueled his desire to break free from the cycle of poverty and adversity. This sense of responsibility towards his family grew even stronger as Ilia began his MMA journey. By the time he was 15, he and his brother made the decision to leave school behind and dedicate themselves fully to martial arts. The commitment to training, the sacrifices they made, and the hardships they endured were all motivated by the goal of providing a better future for themselves and their loved ones. Throughout his rise in MMA, Ilia has been vocal about his desire to create a brighter future for his son, Ilia Topuria. His son's well-being and success are at the forefront of Ilia's mind, and the thought of giving him opportunities he never had is what drives him to push harder and work tirelessly. This personal motivation transcends the desire for victory in the octagon. It's about securing a legacy and offering his family the life they deserve. In interviews, Ilia has frequently spoken about how fighting is a means to an end. For him, it's not just about the physical competition or the accolades. It's about ensuring his family has a stable, prosperous future. Whether it's winning a fight, earning a title, or simply continuing to improve, Ilia's personal motivation remains grounded in the love and responsibility he feels for his family. This underlying drive has helped him push through the most difficult moments of his career, including the pressures of fighting at the highest level, the sacrifices made, and the challenges of adjusting to life in the public eye. Ultimately, Ilia Topuria's motivation goes beyond personal achievement. His legacy is built on his determination to create a better life for his loved ones, especially his son Ilia. This unwavering commitment has become the cornerstone of his fighting spirit, fueling his rise in the UFC and propelling him towards the pinnacle of success. Ilia's confidence before the title fight. As Ilia Topuria approached his title fight with Alexander Volkanovski, his confidence was nothing short of extraordinary. He exuded a self-belief that many champions display before a big fight, drawing comparisons to the likes of Conor McGregor in his prime. Ilia wasn't just stepping into the octagon to compete, he was stepping in with the full conviction that he would win, and he made no effort to hide it. Before the fight, Ilia boldly declared that he would finish Volkanovski within 2 rounds. His confidence was not based on bravado or empty words. Rather, it was rooted in years of hard work, sacrifice, and an unwavering belief in his own abilities. Ilia's ascent to the top of the UFC had been marked by relentless dedication, and this fight was no different. He wasn't fighting just for a title. He was fighting to prove that he had what it took to be the best, and that included taking down one of the sport's most accomplished champions. This level of confidence was essential not only for his mindset but also for the way he carried himself in the lead-up to the fight. Like McGregor, Ilia wasn't shy about promoting himself and hyping up the bout. He believed in his own hype and knew how to fuel the media's interest in the fight. His charisma, coupled with his strong sense of self-assurance, made him a magnetic personality, one that fans and critics alike were eager to see in action. Ilia's comparisons to McGregor were not limited to his confidence alone. Much like McGregor's rise, Ilia's journey was one of rapid progression, where each fight seemed to bring him closer to his ultimate goal. And just as McGregor had broken through barriers with his bold claims and brash persona, Ilia was ready to do the same, except this time he wasn't just seeking fame or attention. He was after the title and the legacy that came with it. What made Ilia's confidence stand out was his ability to back it up in the cage. His rise to the top had not been a fluke. He had honed his skills through years of grueling training and had developed a game that could compete with the best in the world. He wasn't talking the talk without walking the walk. His confidence was the result of his hard-earned skills, his mental toughness, and the deep resolve to succeed. And with each victory, that confidence only grew stronger. As the fight with Volkanovski approached, Ilia's self-assurance was palpable. He wasn't just a fighter, he was a man on a mission, driven by the desire to reach the pinnacle of the sport. His bold prediction for the fight wasn't a mere statement, it was a reflection of the fighter he had become. He believed in himself, his skills, and his destiny. Ilia's confidence before the title fight served as a reminder that, in the world of MMA, belief in oneself is just as important as skill and technique. It was a key factor in his rise to the top, and as he prepared to step into the octagon, it was clear that Ilia Topuria wasn't just aiming for victory, he was aiming for greatness. Media attention and UFC villain role. Ilia Topuria's rise in the UFC was not only marked by his fighting skills but also by his larger-than-life personality. His aggressive style in and out of the octagon quickly earned him the reputation of a UFC villain, one who could generate controversy just as easily as he could generate excitement for a fight. While many fighters choose to keep a low profile, Ilia embraced the role of the bad guy, using his charisma and bold statements to fuel rivalries and hype up his matchups. This persona was crafted through his trash-talking, his confidence, and his willingness to engage in heated exchanges with other fighters. Ilia wasn't afraid to ruffle feathers, and this made him a perfect candidate for UFC's villain archetype. His rivalry with fighters like Paddy Pimblett turned into a media spectacle, with the two exchanging barbs during press conferences. Ilia wasn't shy about throwing insults, and his confrontations with other fighters became a storyline that fans eagerly followed. The hand sanitizer bottle incident, where he threw a bottle at Paddy during a press conference, was one of the many moments that showed how far Ilia was willing to go to entertain the fans and make a statement. His rivalries were more than just physical matchups. They were emotional, personal, and often built on mutual disdain. This only fueled the media's fascination with him. Ilia's ability to create drama around his fights kept fans on edge, wondering what he would do next, both in the cage and outside of it. He knew how to sell a fight, whether through his trash talk or his actions, and it made him one of the most talked about fighters in the UFC. But it wasn't just the rivalries that earned him the villain tag. Ilia's aggressive style in the octagon, his hard-hitting approach, and his unrelenting pursuit of victory added to the persona. Fans loved to hate him, and at the same time, they couldn't help but be captivated by his fighting style and brash confidence. This duality, being both loved and hated, was a key aspect of his success. While some fans saw him as the villain, others saw him as the underdog, someone who had come from a war-torn country and was now making waves in the world's biggest fighting organization. Moreover, Ilia's self-belief and his refusal to back down from anyone or anything made him an even more polarizing figure. His willingness to call out top fighters, including some of the biggest names in the sport, meant that people would either root for him or against him, but they couldn't ignore him. His persona kept him in the spotlight, ensuring that he would remain relevant in the media even when he wasn't fighting. By embracing his role as a villain, Ilia tapped into the entertainment aspect of MMA. Fans loved to watch the clash of personalities, heroes versus villains, and Ilia was more than happy to step into the latter role. His media presence, fueled by his controversial persona, helped elevate his fights to the next level. Whether they were rooting for him or against him, fans were always eager to see what he would do next, both inside and outside the cage. This villainous role didn't come without its downsides. Ilia often found himself at the center of negative attention, with critics pointing to his brashness and trash talk as a turnoff. But for Ilia, the spotlight was worth it. He knew that in the UFC, attention, whether positive or negative, was a currency, and he was more than happy to spend it to further his career. In the end, Ilia Topuria's media attention and villain role were a testament to his understanding of the business side of MMA. He knew that in order to become a star, you needed to generate buzz, and he was more than capable of doing just that. His rivalry with Paddy Pimblett, the trash talk with other fighters, and his relentless confidence made him a fighter that fans couldn't stop talking about, even when they weren't talking about his fights. This blend of controversy, charisma, and fighting prowess turned Ilia into one of the most intriguing and talked-about figures in the UFC. Tension with Conor McGregor. Ilia Topuria's career has been marked by his brash confidence and willingness to go toe-to-toe with anyone, but one of the most intriguing developments in his journey has been his relationship with MMA superstar Conor McGregor. Initially, Ilia was a fan of McGregor, admiring his rise to fame, his larger-than-life persona, and his ability to dominate the sport with both his words and his fists. McGregor's meteoric rise in MMA, particularly his outspoken nature and charismatic personality, seemed to inspire Ilia, who saw the Irishman as a role model in many ways. However, over time, Ilia began to see a different side of McGregor, one that he found disappointing. As McGregor's career progressed, it became clear that he was more focused on fame, wealth, and his personal brand than his dedication to the sport. Ilia started to criticize McGregor for what he saw as a lack of discipline. He felt that McGregor's public persona, including his ventures outside of MMA like business and entertainment, was overshadowing his ability to stay focused on fighting. For Ilia, Discipline was everything, and he couldn't respect a fighter who seemed to let outside distractions take priority over training and competing at the highest level. This shift in Ilia's view of McGregor turned into a tense rivalry between the two. As Ilia's own career began to rise, he wasn't shy about voicing his opinions on McGregor, calling out his lack of commitment to the sport. Ilia became increasingly vocal, accusing McGregor of not respecting the essence of MMA and the hard work that goes into being the best. The tension between them escalated as fans began to take sides. Some sided with Ilia, believing that McGregor had lost his way, while others felt McGregor's legacy in the sport was undeniable and that Ilia was simply a young fighter trying to make a name for himself by attacking a legend. Ilia, however, seemed unfazed by the criticism, doubling down on his stance and even fueling the fire with more pointed remarks. Ilia's challenges to McGregor weren't just verbal. He expressed his desire to eventually fight McGregor in the octagon, viewing it as an opportunity to prove that his generation of fighters was superior to the older guard. He believed that if he could take down McGregor, it would be a symbolic moment in MMA, showing that discipline and dedication could triumph over fame and distractions. Fans were drawn to the idea of this clash between two fighters from very different backgrounds and mentalities. Ilia's intensity and hunger to succeed contrasted sharply with McGregor's flashy lifestyle, and the possibility of a fight between them became a tantalizing proposition. McGregor, on the other hand, didn't seem to take Ilia's words lightly. Although he didn't always engage directly with Ilia's criticisms, there was no denying that the tension between them added another layer to the drama in the MMA world. McGregor's fans, known for their passionate support of their hero, rallied behind him, dismissing Ilia as a young upstart who had yet to prove himself on the same level as McGregor. For Ilia, however, the rivalry with McGregor was more than just a way to get media attention. It was a personal challenge to prove that he could surpass the fighters of the past and take the sport to new heights. He saw himself as the future of MMA, and the more he critiqued McGregor, the more he built the narrative of a new champion rising to take the throne. The tension between the two fighters represented a broader theme in the MMA world: the clash between old legends and new blood. McGregor was a pioneer of MMA's global popularity, but as Ilia continued to climb the ranks, he felt that it was time for the next generation to step up and carry the sport forward. This tension, while personal, was also symbolic of the changing landscape of MMA. Whether or not a fight between Ilia and McGregor will ever happen remains to be seen, but the animosity between them has kept fans intrigued and invested in the idea of the two fighters facing off. For Ilia, it serves as a reminder of his journey, his rise from humble beginnings to a fighter determined to carve his own legacy, one that is separate from the past, yet deeply influenced by it. Max Holloway enters the scene. After Ilia Topuria's incredible rise to prominence in the UFC, including a string of dominant performances and his eventual featherweight title victory, the conversation began to shift towards potential future matchups that would test his skills on an even higher level. One of the names that began to surface in these discussions was Max Holloway, a former UFC featherweight champion widely considered one of the best strikers and one of the most well-rounded fighters in the history of the division. Max Holloway's reputation as the best boxer in the UFC, combined with his relentless pace and exceptional cardio, made him a formidable figure in the featherweight division. Holloway's ability to push the pace in his fights and outlast opponents in striking exchanges had earned him a cult following, and he was known for being a fan favorite. His clashes with other top contenders, including his wars with Alexander Volkanovski, had only cemented his legacy as one of the elite fighters in the sport. For Ilia, this potential matchup with Holloway was more than just another fight. It was a test of everything he had worked for. As a fighter who had built his career around aggression, discipline, and dominance, the prospect of facing someone like Holloway was both a challenge and an opportunity. Holloway's experience, combined with his striking prowess, made him a dangerous opponent, and Ilia understood that this fight would be a true proving ground. The media quickly began to hype up the potential matchup between Ilia and Holloway, recognizing the stylistic contrast between the two fighters. On one hand, you had Holloway's precise, volume-based striking and his ability to absorb damage and keep coming forward. On the other hand, you had Ilia, a powerful and aggressive fighter with a wrestling-heavy style and the heart of someone who had fought through adversity from a young age. Fans could already envision the fireworks that would ensue when these two warriors clashed in the octagon. Ilia's aggressive personality and trash talk also added fuel to the fire, further intensifying the narrative surrounding the fight. While Holloway was known for being a confident and relaxed competitor, Ilia's in-your-face attitude and willingness to engage in verbal warfare made him a polarizing figure in the lead-up to the potential showdown. The UFC and the fans loved the drama, and the idea of seeing Ilia's explosive style clash with Holloway's technical brilliance was something that would surely bring excitement to the sport. As the hype around the fight continued to build, Ilia stayed focused on his goal, proving that he was the best in the division and that he could beat anyone standing in his way. His previous rivalries and confident statements, especially leading up to his title fight, had already built him a reputation as a fighter unafraid of anyone. A win over someone like Max Holloway, however, would take his career to new heights and establish him as one of the top fighters in the world. The media attention surrounding Ilia's rise, especially after winning the featherweight title, had positioned him as one of the UFC's most exciting prospects. A fight with Holloway seemed inevitable as the stakes were clear. A victory would solidify Ilia's place as the undisputed king of the featherweight division, while Holloway, still a top contender, sought to regain his spot at the top. For Ilia, it wasn't just about the fight, it was about the legacy he was creating. From his difficult childhood in Georgia to his rise through the ranks in Spain, every fight and every win was another step toward his ultimate goal: to be remembered as one of the best. A win over Max Holloway would be another chapter in that story, one that would cement his place in the history books as a fighter who overcame all odds to reach the pinnacle of the sport. Ilia's brothers returned to fighting. While Ilia Topuria was making waves in the UFC and climbing the ranks to become a featherweight champion, the spotlight was not solely on him. Alongside his remarkable journey, Ilia's brother Alex Topuria was making his own return to professional fighting. Alex, who had been sidelined for several years due to a severe shoulder injury, was ready to pick up where he left off. For years, Alex had been a promising fighter in his own right, with immense potential and a fighting style that complemented Ilia's. The two brothers, both passionate about martial arts, had shared a dream of making it to the top together. However, Alex's career was derailed when he suffered a significant shoulder injury that required extensive surgery and a long recovery period. During this time, Ilia continued his rise through the ranks, but the bond between the brothers remained unshaken. Despite the challenges, Alex never lost his love for the sport. He continued training and working tirelessly to regain his strength and skill, determined to make a comeback. With Ilia's success as a motivator and inspiration, Alex was more driven than ever to re-enter the cage and follow in his brother's footsteps. He had the support of Ilia, who had been his guiding force throughout the recovery process, encouraging him to push through the pain and never give up on his dream. The Topuria brothers' bond was not just built on shared blood but on mutual respect and a deep understanding of each other's struggles. Both had faced hardship in their lives, Ilia growing up in a war-torn country and Alex dealing with a career-threatening injury. Together, they were a testament to resilience and determination, a duo that had always been driven by a collective vision. As Alex made his return to professional fighting, the anticipation among fans grew. The Topuria name was becoming synonymous with toughness, skill, and heart. Ilia, who had already established himself as a top contender in the featherweight division, believed wholeheartedly that his brother had what it took to follow in his footsteps and become a UFC champion in his own right. The thought of both brothers holding UFC gold was a possibility that fueled their training and gave them even more reason to push through the pain and hardship. Ilia knew that Alex was capable of great things. His resilience and natural fighting talent had always been apparent. The road ahead might be tough, but Ilia was confident that his brother would rise to the challenge just as he had. Fans of the Topuria family were eagerly watching Alex's return, wondering when they would see the two brothers share the octagon together. The narrative of two siblings fighting side by side for the same goal, their family's future, was compelling, and the UFC was keen on promoting this story. It added a new layer of excitement to Ilia's own journey, as the Topurias became a dynamic duo in the world of MMA. As Ilia continued to chase greatness in the UFC, he knew that his brother's time would come. Together, they would solidify their legacy as one of the most formidable fighting families in the sport. Whether it was Ilia defending his title or Alex capturing a championship of his own, the Topuria name was destined for even greater success in the UFC. The Topuria brothers' journey is one of perseverance, strength, and the unbreakable bond of family. From their humble beginnings in a war-torn country to the pinnacle of mixed martial arts, Ilia and Alex have overcome obstacles that would break many. Through injury, hardship, and separation, their dedication to their craft and each other never wavered. As Ilia continues his rise in the UFC, securing victories, rivalries, and ultimately the title, his brother Alex is not far behind, carving out his own path back to the octagon. Together, they represent more than just fighters. They embody the power of family, resilience, and the pursuit of greatness. The story of the Topuria brothers is far from over. Whether it's Ilia holding a championship belt or Alex making his triumphant return, their legacy will be defined by the relentless pursuit of their dreams and the unwavering support they have for one another. Their journey is a testament to the fact that true champions are not just made in the ring, but in the strength they draw from those they love. And as the world watches, one thing is clear: the Topurias are just getting started and their best is yet to come.